The 2022 preseason All Big 12 team has been released, and there is a total of one OU player on it. And there are no offensive players and no defensive players because the only OU player on it is Michael Turk, the punter. He is your All Big 12 preseason punter. Other than that, no representation for the Crimson and Cream.
It's fascinating, isn't it? And Michael Turk is the guaranteed pick for punter. There's no doubt about it. When your punter drops a video and a graphic saying he's coming back, I think that's kind of a big deal, right? If your punter's that good. Here's what's crazy. I think I agree. Maybe not necessarily with everyone on the list, but I kind of get it.
Here's the part of the podcast where some people may think we're going to be outraged.
Right.
When really, first of all, let's say this. First of all, Brent Venables didn't need any more motivational material, right? The guy's already a master motivator. He is, but this is certainly going to add to it. I mean, this is the stuff you love, Ted. You love the under the radar stuff. I love the, hey, have high expectations and live up to them stuff in the preseason. This clearly falls into your category of, okay, feel slighted, feel disrespected heading into the year. I mean, BV tweeted a picture of the lists. Did you see that? It said, Team 128, you will get what you earn.
That's right.
Hashtag dirty hard work in the dark, which is still just hilarious. Dirty hard
That's
work
right.
in the dark.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I agree with the list, but I fully expect there to be several OU players offensively and defensively whenever the list actually matters at the end of the year. But going into it, you could make an argument for a couple of guys, but
let's do it. Let's just go through it real quick.
Okay.
Because I agree with you. I think OU's going to win a lot of games. I think they're going to have some guys on the postseason All Big 12 team, right? History tells us that's likely to happen. But when you look at the offense, when I saw it, I really didn't know how upset I should be or OU fans should be, because when you probably look at the guy that has the biggest argument, that's probably Marvin Mims, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't just have some dynamite year last year. He didn't as talented as we all think he is. The speed, the consistency, like he disappeared in some games. Now, that could have been to, the play calling, to, the performance at the quarterback position. Like, there's all kinds of things that go into a wide receiver putting up big numbers, the running game, right? That all matters. But heading into this year, are you taking him over Xavier Hutchinson at Iowa State, or Quentin Johnston at TCU, or Xavier Worthy, who I think all of us agree is, probably the best wide receiver in the Big 12 heading into the year? There's really not a great argument for Marvin Mims with what we've seen. Now, if you want to say, hey, he's going to put up big numbers in Levy's system, yeah, I can get on board for that line, for, that side of the argument. But really, with what we saw last year, you look at Hutchinson and Johnson and Worthy, those guys, I think also all just bigger in stature than Marvin Mims. I don't really know what the argument is.
Yeah, there's not much of one. I mean, I'm looking at it for receptions a game. You've got Xavier Hutchinson was number 1 in the Big 12 last year. Xavier Worthy was number 4 in the Big 12 last year. Quentin Johnston was number 10. Mims was not on there. Receiving touchdowns, Xavier Worthy, number 1 with 12. Tyquan Thornton, oh, that's Baylor. Quentin Johnston had 6. Xavier Hutchinson had 5. No Marvin Mims. Yards, same thing. Worthy, number 1. Hutchinson, number 3. Quentin Johnston, number 4. Those are your guys. That's just how it is. I mean, statistically, it bears out. Now, here's the thing. I fully expect Marvin Mims to make a great play, or someone from OU. Like, maybe it's Mims, maybe someone else emerges, but I fully expect a wide receiver from OU to make a play for one of those 3 spots. It's going to be hard. Those 3 guys are all really, really good. I think Quentin Johnston has a chance to maybe lead the country in receiving this year. As much as TCU is going to throw the football, they're going to throw it to him nonstop. But I do expect Mims to challenge to get on that list, and maybe a couple other guys. I mean, one of the things about OU is no one else is the amount of great receivers that we have on our roster right now is there's a bunch, and that means the ball gets spread around quite a bit. So it may be hard to stack up some of those numbers, but I fully expect for Marvin Mims or someone on the roster to challenge for one of those spots.
Yeah, I'm with you. Completely with you. I just think that we can think that and also acknowledge that, you know, these 3 guys as the preseason all Big 12 guys and wide receivers, probably the way it should be. And there's nothing wrong with that, but just knowing that OU could have multiple receivers step up and put up big numbers, like that would be ideal to me. It's like you have 3 guys, 4 guys with 700-800 yards.
Yeah.
Right. And you're just throwing it all over the place. Like that would be, now that's usually not how it works out, but I think that this will give Marvin Mims a lot of motivation. There's no doubt. And Jaleel Farouk, Theo Weiss, guys that we know are going to play significant roles at wideout for this team. And I don't hate that. I don't hate that Marvin Mims is going into the season with a chip on his shoulder. Don't hate it at all.
And it's, you know, it's not necessarily his fault for the output he had last year. We had a quarterback change, had a freshman playing quarterback who was not very good at reading things out down the field. And it really affected the offense in the way that it kind of unfolded throughout the season. I don't expect that to be the case next year or this coming year. I expect Marvin Mims to have a really big year.
Yeah. Okay. Looking at the running backs, we're both excited with everything we've heard about Eric Gray, right? That he's just been Mr. Consistency. DeMarco Murray always refers to him as a pro, but there's no way you can pick him over Bijan or Deuce Vaughn. With how productive and explosive those guys have been, not only in the run game, but in the pass game. I mean, Eric Gray's just going to have to produce before anyone's picking him on one of these lists before Deuce Vaughn and Bijan Robinson. That's just the truth.
Yep, that's right. All the other guys, I mean, they're pretty much right there on the top of all of the rushing list, aside from the guys that are now gone. That's who it's going to be. That's who it's going to be. And this is the interesting one. If Oklahoma breaks a running back onto this group, the first team all Big 12, we got a juggernaut offense on our hands. Oh, and yeah. I don't think it's out of the question. I don't think it's out of the question that could be a freshman. You know, you never know what's going to happen. Both of these guys, Bijan, Deuce Vaughn, excellent players. You know, I think that Bijan, if the first part of the season is ugly for Texas, could be a little opt-out factor going on with Bijan, possibly as, you know, looked as maybe the best running back in the country. So if we get a guy on as a running back, that tells you everything you need to know about the way the season went offensively.
Yep. Looking at the other positions, I mean, tight end, you got Ben Sims from Baylor. As excited as I am to see Braden Willis's role expanded this year, I mean, health has been an issue and he hasn't been productive.
Yep.
As good of a leader as I think he is for this team, as much of an athletic freak as I think he is, and he also does a lot of the dirty work at the tight end, like H-back position. I think he's a really good player, but it's tight end right now on these types of lists. It's about producing in the pass game, and that's just not something he's done a lot of. It's just, once again, it's just the truth.
Just the truth. But again, would not shock me if by the end of the season, he's one of the tight ends we're talking about in this conference, and may emerge as one of those guys that's knocking on the door for that type of spot.
Yeah. As far as quarterback, Spencer Sanders being the preseason All Big 12 quarterback. I know he was the first team All Big 12 quarterback after last season. He did have some really good stretches of football, but give me Dylan Gabriel over Spencer Sanders
all day.
I just, if there was anyone that I looked at and I was like, that probably should be an OU guy. I know that Dylan Gabriel, he got hurt last year. I know that when he put up big numbers that it was in the American Athletic Conference. I understand that. But I just think with what I've seen from Dylan Gabriel in the spring, give me that guy in the way he can rip it, as opposed to the 3 years of Spencer Sanders I've seen. Now, Sanders, maybe he takes a big step, but I feel like we've been saying that for 3 years. So I personally would take Dylan Gabriel over Spencer Sanders.
Yeah. And I think ultimately that's who's going to end up getting it at the end of the season. I think it will be Dylan Gabriel. And, I think that for all the reasons you said, the way he moves, the way he can throw, the way he creates plays, he's got the numbers that back that up. Different conference, understood, but he's going to be surrounded by the best players he's ever had. I fully expect Dylan Gabriel to be your Big 12, all Big 12 quarterback next season. If it's not Dylan Gabriel, if it's Spencer Sanders, then something has gone bad in the Big 12, right? And that's nothing against him. I expect Oklahoma State to have much more difficult year, and you're going to have a couple of really good football teams in Baylor and Oklahoma. I think Dylan Gabriel will be your guy. I feel very strongly Dylan Gabriel will be the guy.
Yeah, I guess if you're thinking about a dark horse, and we've talked about this a lot, the fact that Dave Aranda said, "Hey, Blake Shapen, you're our guy. Gary, go find another place to play." Maybe Blake Shapen comes out and lights it up for Baylor. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's fascinating that occurred. And I give Dave Aranda all the credit in the world for doing that and being honest, because I feel like most coaches in this day and age would have done everything they could to keep Bohannon there, just in case you have an injury issue and you've got a backup quarterback. But yeah, that's pretty wild. Pretty wild.
As far as offensive linemen not being on the preseason All Big 12 team for OU, I really wish I could come on here and pound the table for someone. But anyone that has listened to this podcast knows how frustrated I was with each and every guy that played a lot of football for them last year along the offensive line. And now Anton Harrison, he's got all the talent, right? And everything I've heard about how his attitude has changed, how his work ethic has changed, has me extremely encouraged for the type of football he's going to play. But he just has not shown that on Saturdays consistently. I'd like to come on here and say, no, he's a better player than the Downing kid from Iowa State. He's a better player than the Frazier kid from West Virginia. Like, you got to have Anton on there. I wish I could come on here and say that. I expect that to be the case, but I'm going to need to see it on Saturdays. That's it. And I expect that is going to be the case, but I don't think OU has a lineman that has shown a level of play at a consistent level, a consistently high level, to where we should come on here and be upset that they're not on this list. I don't think any of those guys have earned it. I don't. And I think clearly a lot of people agree with me, people that voted for this. But if there's the one guy that I'm expecting to take the big leap, it's Anton Harrison. And I think Wanye Morris can do some really, really good things as well. But yeah, I saw the offensive line list and I wasn't shocked. I know that.
Yeah. This is another one that I feel like, because of the system, because of the play calling and some of the things that are going to be different this year, I would be shocked if there's not at least one, maybe multiple offensive linemen on that list by the end of the season. I just feel like the way that they're going to run that offense is, and I feel like the confidence with that group is just going to build and build and build, and they're going to have the attitude that we're used to seeing. I think it's going to be back. I think they're going to get used to mulling over the top of people, and I think it's going to end up with really good results, running game, passing game. I think, in my opinion, like, this group is the offense is, if our offensive line steps up and plays to their capabilities, the list is going to be littered with Oklahoma guys on the All Big 12 team. If they don't, it's going to be way more difficult for anyone to crack this list.
Yeah. Okay. Looking at the defensive side of things, no OU players. And when you saw it, when you were looking at it kind of position by position, was there any one guy that you thought, hey, no, he should be on there?
From OU?
Yeah.
No. Nope.
That's how I felt too.
Well, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard because what is this list? Is this list a little bit of a reward for what you've done previously? Or is it only a projection of what you think is going to happen at the end of the year? I think by the end of the year, there's a chance some OU guys can make this list, but this is not the Big 12 of old where the defense is terrible and, if you're a good player, you're going to make the list. This list is stacked with players, stacked. Defensive line, stacked. Backers, really, really good. But I do think there's a couple of guys that have an opportunity to make it defensive line wise, a couple of guys that have an opportunity to make it backer and DB wise.
Yeah, you look at a guy like Jalen Redmond, right? He can be more productive than a guy like Dante Stills from West Virginia. And I like Stills, but Redmond's got more natural pop than him, more natural power. He's got to stay healthy and he's got to be more consistent. I saw some people mentioning, like, how could Marcus Stripling not be on this list? I was like, wait, guys, we need to relax. Like, once again, you have to make plays on Saturdays to make this list. And as excited as we are about the progress Stripling has made in the spring, he hadn't made a lot of plays on game day. He just hadn't. So you look at that, and I mean, Will McDonald, OU doesn't have anyone that's done near what he's done. I don't think OU has anyone like Felix Anudike-Uzama from K-State. At the end of the year, he may end up being the best player in this entire conference. Like, I am very high on that young man.
And McDonald is either led or tied in sacks the last 3 years, right?
Yeah. And I thought he was a lot better against the run last season than he was the year before. I definitely think there's a spot, when it's all said and done after the season. I could see a linebacker taken one of these spots from like a guy like Dylan Doyle. I think Doyle's a solid player, but once again, there's not a guy for OU that has produced to the level of where we can come on here and make some big fuss about it.
No. Well, frankly, we don't even have what you would technically call a returning starter. I mean, Stutzman played some, Aguebu played some, Deshaun White played the most, but I mean, I don't know how, like, you know what I'm saying? There's such a rotation going on that I don't know who you would technically term as last year's starting Mike Backer. Now, Asamoah was starting Will Backer, but I don't know who last year's Mike Backer was, because it was different game to game on who was starting at that position and series to series. So, I mean, we just haven't had that consistency yet there. I think that room is talented enough that there should be someone by the end of the season, without a doubt. But a lot of that's depending on how the defensive line plays.
There's no doubt. As far as defensive back, I mean, Woody Washington, I think we saw some stretches of all conference type play from him last year, but didn't stay healthy. Right? I think there were some series, even some quarters from Key Lawrence where he looked like the best player on the field for them. So I think those two guys in particular, like a guy like Kenny Logan from Kansas, I didn't think he was particularly good last year for them. I thought he took a step back as a player. So he wouldn't have been on my list. But I think if you're looking for a spot where some of you guys could end up on the postseason list, I do think Key Lawrence and Woody Washington are two guys that they've got all conference type talent and ability. And if everything goes according to plan, they should be off conference players.
Yeah. Well, part of the problem is, when's the last time we had a defensive back that started every game at the same position? Woody Washington missed. Key Lawrence played several different positions. Bowman played different positions. Like, they had to mix and match guys.
I'm going to throw a random guess out there. I don't know if this is right. My guess is Stephen Parker. That's my guess.
Probably. That's been a problem back there. We haven't had consistency. We've had injury. We've had to move different guys around. I'm starting to feel pretty good about what the secondary is going to look like next year. I think it's going to be really competitive. And I think whoever ends up locking down those spots, like, because I feel like there's a lot of talent in both the corner and the safety room right now. I feel good about it. I think defensively, this may be the easiest position to crack to make the All Big 12.
That's interesting. We'll see. I know a lot of fans want to complain about it. Just remember the unfortunate part is the preseason list does matter. People say it doesn't, but it does when it comes to postseason voting, because people are lazy. They just look at what their preseason once said. Oh, did they have decent stats? Okay, I'll just vote them all Big 12 at the end of the year. So hopefully there's a lot of OU names on it when
we want to believe that there's some like big committee that sits down for a weekend, locks in a conference room at a hotel, and goes through all of the film throughout the entire season to make these picks. Unfortunately, that's not the case.
This is what happens. The PR person from the Big 12 sends you an email and says, hey, please fill this out. That's exactly how it works, because I get one. So man. It is, hopefully a lot of people put in a lot of thought into it. I don't know if that's the case all the time, but who knows? Okay.